Good day and welcome. All right, so we need to get you set up so that you can become a roboticist, and there are sort of three tools I need you to set up. First of all, we're going to need to set up our GitHub credentials so that we can use GitHub really easily and seamlessly. You don't want to have to be remembering passwords and dealing with lots of stuff because there will be lots of GitHub repos in this course. We're also going to use FreeCAD. FreeCAD already is basically set up inside of your container environment, but we need to run a few commands to get it running. And we'll also look at Blender. Now, this video is going to be about setting up these things. We won't go into too much detail about how these programs work. That'll be coming a bit later. So let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to set up or create some SSH keys. And we're just going to create some that are basically kind of throwaway just for this challenge. If you already know how to do this, feel free to do it your own way, but this is the basic way. So what we're going to do is we're going to type the command SSH keygen and just hit enter. What this is going to do is it's going to create for us some private SSH keys that are basically like passwords that are a bit more complex than passwords, and it's going to save them in a part of our system. In this case, you saw in that I'd already saved one and just overwrote it. You won't have that issue, I imagine. And now what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to get the public key. Now, don't worry, the public key is what you are supposed to share with other people so that they know you are who you are. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to run this command. Make sure you have an id_rsa.pub. If you do it without the .pub, that'll be your secret key, which you need to keep secret and never show anyone. And what we're going to do is going to copy this series of garbled, like random stuff, and we're going to give it to GitHub so that when our VS Code dev container WSL tries to talk to GitHub, GitHub will know that this is us and not some other computer. Okay, great. So now here I am at github.com, logged in as my user. You can see I have this embarrassing old photo of myself that I guess I'm never going to change, and today will be no exception. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into settings, and then along the left-hand side, there's a thing called SSH and GPG keys. What we've created is an SSH key, and you can see I've got a whole bunch of them, but I'm going to create a new SSH key just for this purpose, and I'm going to call it, Big Beast WSL key number 2, I think. So you're just going to give it a name so that you can be, aware of it. Hit add SSH key, and then I'm going to need to add an authentication code, although for you, it depends on how you set up your GitHub. Anyway, so I'm going to do that, and then we'll go back to VS Code. Okay, now that I've gone and told GitHub about my SSH keys, and that way this computer, when it talks to GitHub, will be able to easily collect all of the, it'll easily talk to GitHub. And it'll also mean that if I create my own repos, which I will encourage you to do as part of this course, that this environment will be able to easily push commits to those repos. So that's what we're doing. That's how it's going to work. Now we need to use that. I've created a really simple thing. If we just go Control-Shift-P, run tasks, and then run setup, what this will do, and this will take a long time because it's going to do a whole bunch of stuff. What this will do is this will go through, it will download FreeCAD actually for us inside of our dev container. It will also download a whole bunch of repos that will help us as we go through the first 2 weeks of the course. And then away we go. It will also try and compile those repos, and it will sort of set up our system so that we're ready to start doing some ROS stuff. So this might take a bunch of time. As you can see here, it's got to download a whole bunch of things. And so I'll see you back when this is finished. Okay, cool. So now that that's finished, I'm just going to scroll up in this window so you can see what happened. So we downloaded FreeCAD, which did all this stuff. It just used this thing called wget to download. And then we cloned a whole bunch of repos. When you're doing this, you might find the repos are different as I'm expanding this course a little bit. But anyway, download these 4 repos. And then what it did is it went and looked in those repos and tried to install all the dependencies that are listed in those repos. It scrolls down, it finds that one dependency, Ross Humble Warehouse, Ross Mongo, doesn't exist. I need to cut that out. It doesn't matter if you get that error. It just means that you can't use the Mongo database for running Move It, but we're not doing that anyway, so who cares? Anyway, so that is how it sort of looks when you've set up your system. And all right, so next, let's see if we can use FreeCAD. Okay, so turning on FreeCAD is actually a lot easier than you might think. What we're going to do is we're going to go Control-Shift-P, I'm going to be on the thing, Control Shift P. We're going to go Run Task, and I've created a FreeCAD task that will start FreeCAD. And so let's do that now. And it takes a little bit of time because it's got to unpack the thing that we downloaded with wget, and then it should just load up. All going well, you should be able to see this. This is FreeCAD. This is a FreeCAD, stands for Computer Aided Design tool. And FreeCAD allows us to play with and understand different meshes, and there's a really great library that's going to let us build our robot inside of FreeCAD and then export it. And that should hopefully save us a little bit of time as we're working on various things. There's a little bit of extra setup we need to do to get that to work. But for now, let's just get a little bit acquainted to the FreeCAD system. So probably the most important thing with FreeCAD is to know that it has this concept of workbenches. And workbenches just change all of the toolbars you have up here. And you might go, oh, who cares about that? No, it's actually super important, because depending on what you're trying to do, the little quick shortcuts are sort of how you do everything. So with FreeCAD, I often like to start in what's called part design, because we're often creating a new part. And you can hit this create new, and we might as well just hit that big plus because it's just there. And now there are two things on the left here. There's tasks and there's model. FreeCAD has a whole lot of complicated things, but the key idea is let's create a body. And a body is just some object, some continuous object, though. They can't have any breaks in that object. And then what we can do is we can create a sketch to start the body. So when you do that, what you should see is these XY planes and stuff. And so we're going to create a sketch on a 2D sketch, like a drawing, and then we're going to extrude it out. So we're going to like pull out the drawing and make it into 3 dimensions. It's almost like, imagine you had a piece of paper, and then you can create a box by like stacking bits of paper to make it thicker and thicker. That's sort of what we're doing. And we need to decide what plane is the sketch going to be on. So is it on the XZ plane, which is kind of like your up plane, or the XY plane, which is like where you might use your table plane, or the YZ plane, which is another up plane, but in the opposite direction. I think I like the XY plane. And now it quickly zooms us into this sort of weird view. And this is our sketcher view. And so there's a whole bunch of buttons that are annoyingly hidden over here. But what we can do is we can drag this down so we can see the tools. And you'll notice that we've changed workbenches. FreeCAD just does this to you. Changes from part design to sketcher. But that's okay because we're making a sketch. And so we need all the tools for making a sketch when we're in the sketcher. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a really simple box, just, simplest shape ever. I'm just going to draw a square, and I'm going to hit close. And now you can have a look, and you can see I've kind of got in 3D, if I hold down both middle mouse and left, I can rotate around. And we've got like a sketch. If I hit origin, now we've got like those origins back, and you can see the sketch just lives on that XY plane. And okay, cool. To make this kind of interesting, what we want to do is we want to turn it into a 3D shape. So we're going to hit pad and OK. And so now what we have is a 3D shape. And this is the basis of everything you do in FreeCAD. You're kind of carving 3D shapes to make the actual shape that you want. There's also a lot of concepts like different bodies, and you can add new bodies. It's kind of annoying me that this toolbars are kind of not easy to see. I'm just going to move this here as well. But yeah, so you can consider adding new bodies. So if we add 2 bodies, now we have body and body other one. You can rename the bodies with a label. So I'm going to call this like test 1. And now that's been changed to test 1. I can click on it and hit spacebar to make it invisible. And this one to make spacebar to make that invisible. So I'm going to call this actual body. And now I can make actual body visible or invisible by hitting spacebar, and this one visible or invisible. And so the kind of idea is that you can have different bodies, and you might, have different parts of your robot all come together to make a robot, and each part needs to be its own separate shape. I'll go through a little bit more detail later on with a lot of the stuff for FreeCAD. You can use the middle mouse button to move around. You can middle mouse with the right mouse to rotate. This cool little cube in the right lets us change angles in a very kind of precise manner. But anyway, yeah, I will go through a bit more detail in FreeCAD later on. But I wanted to give you a sense of what's going on. I encourage you to, run setup and then try and run FreeCAD to see what you can do. Possibly one last little note on FreeCAD. The reason why we've got it inside the VS Code is that it lets us actually do things a bit closer. So you'll see when we start making robots why having FreeCAD alongside the robot system is going to make things far, far easier. And finally, we have Blender. So we won't do a lot in Blender with this challenge, but I want you to make sure you download and open it so that you have it ready to go. And for Blender, it's pretty straightforward. All we're going to do, and I'll just start with a general thing. The real key thing we're going to look at with Blender, and it's got so much stuff, is we're going to be wanting to change the material of our objects. So Blender's got a middle mouse button, allows you to roll around. A few important things: viewport shading, and this next one, display in material preview mode. That's very important for us. We'll be wanting to, in this case, material refers to how a surface, what color it is or how it reflects light. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to change how different faces of our model reflect light. And so we might want to go into edit mode, and we might want to choose face select. There's all these tiny little things you got to click. If I select that face there, and then down the bottom here, there's a weird red circle thing called material. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new material, and I'm going to assign, I might, select that material, create a new material. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it John, I guess. Why not? Or whatever that is. Okay, just some random letters. And then I might change its color to be blue. And I know that looks really basic. That's all we're really going to do. Blender's an amazing, powerful tool. But the key idea is we're going to use its material editing properties to allow us to change and also manipulate meshes if when we go to collecting photogrammetry meshes. Anyway, so all I want you to do is to try this out. Just boot up Blender, take the default cube, change one of its sides to a different color, and that's it. So with that, we've got, if you're on Windows 11 anyway, you've got all of your systems sort of set up, ready to go, and we should be able to get started in doing some robotics. See you later.